Hurts in a shotgun set. Barkley to his right, motions Smith out. Hurts back, throws left, pass intercepted along the right sideline. Racing up the sideline for the Giants is Cordell Flott. He's to the 40, 30, and knocked out of bounds at the Philadelphia 22. Hurts picked off for the first time this year. Cordell Flott's his name.
Oh, that was Bob Papa on WFAN. You never know what you're going to get on Thursday Night Football. You never know if you're going to get a highlight starring Cordell Flott on a 34-17 Giants victory. What an upset. What a night. At some point, Nick Shook, this went from a game that I thought Jaxson Dart had taken a really good step forward to a game where Jaxson Dart is going to get Jeremy Lin levels of hype over the next 10 days, and he might deserve it because that performance really was incredible by the young Giants quarterback.
Yeah, only in New York do you get that level of hype after a flash of a moment of success. But man, what a great game he had. You know, we talked about this before the season, that Russell Wilson was going to lose his job to Jaxson Dart. The writing was on the wall, and we saw why in the preseason, and even in his first game with the Giants, he led them to a victory, but it wasn't overly impressive. He had a nightmarish game in New Orleans last week. This is the exact opposite. He did everything that makes him special and makes him a great fit for Brian Daboll as he's trying to save his job. He scrambled. He threw a number of dimes. He passed confidently all night. He shook off a trip to the blue tent in which Brian Daboll was enraged that it wasn't moving quickly enough and came back and helped them finish this game. I'm not going to go so far as to say that the Giants have their franchise quarterback, but they should feel very, very good about what they saw from Jaxson Dart tonight. A huge step forward and leading them to an upset victory.
Well, they certainly believe they have their franchise quarterback. That is for sure. And it is a game that was good enough to change the expectations, I believe, for Dart for this Giants season. Not like they're going to the playoffs or anything like that, but it was special because of everything that you said in terms of what he added to the running game, and that it's not just him running 13 times for 58 yards in a key early touchdown where he saved what looked like a dead play, but it's Cam Skattebo going 19 for 98 on the ground, like just an electric player to watch run through the face of these Philadelphia Eagles on the way to 3 touchdowns. And the way that those two have just energized an entire team with a big-time assist from Andrew Thomas, an all-pro left tackle who returned a few weeks ago and gets better and better every week. But the reason why, for me, it changes the expectations, Shook, is the diversity of what Dart did. You mentioned the first 2 games, I thought, he looked like a rookie. Like, it had some fun moments and everything. This game, the scrambles that he had were electric, but some of the touch passes that he had, 3 of his best throws, I actually wrote down, I thought were not complete. There was the seam ball to Theo Johnson that he couldn't haul in. There was a really nice touch pass on the goal line to little Jordan Humphrey that he couldn't finish the play. And then he had a great throw in the red zone that was called pass interference late that set up the third Cam Skattebo touchdown. And between those throws and the shots down the field, he's going to give his guys chances. And he doesn't have a great receiver group right now. There was no Darius Slayton tonight. So their 1 and 2 wide receivers were Wan'Dale Robinson and little Jordan Humphrey. And Jalen Hyatt was out there making a key third down catch. Between that and the ability to just make something happen with his legs, that's enough to build an offense around. And you can see how excited Daboll is to build that offense.
Yeah, and you could see how frantic he was when there was a chance of Dart not coming back in the game. Like, I tweeted it. I was just like, Daboll would rather walk barefoot over broken glass than play one more series with Russell Wilson because he knows that the difference is just so significant. And
did he yell at the guy in the blue tent?
Yes, he yelled at the guy in the suit, or in the sport coat at least. He yelled, and who knows what happened with that. We can probably get the details on that later, but it just goes to show how much he believes in Jaxson Dart. And the beauty of Jaxson Dart and why he fits with New York so well is because he made those throws that you just listed with no fear, with complete confidence. And that's the quarterback he's been throughout the course of most of his collegiate career. Now, that rubs some people the wrong way as if he was overly confident, but it works perfectly in New York, where you have to be built to deal with the scrutiny of the New York media, and also the fact that you're playing for the Giants, who haven't tasted success in forever. You're going to go out there and lead them to a win over the defending Super Bowl champions, a division rival, and you're going to do it with absolutely zero regard for A, the possible outcomes, and B, your own health at times when scrambling. That's going to win the hearts of Giants fans. I think it just did tonight, and is a huge reason why they won that game. And you're right about the scramble. That touchdown run early in the game, oh my God, that was beautiful. Like, the way he knifed through the Eagles defense to get to the end zone, you might watch that back and think like, wow, they really did a terrible job of containing him. Well, Zach Bond got kind of juked out of his shoes, but that takes courage, and that takes athleticism that we saw in the preseason that is now coming through in the regular season. I'm excited for them. Like you said, not going to be a playoff team necessarily, but they're going to be interesting to watch, entertaining, which is more than we've been able to say about them for a long time.
Well, why don't we go watch that one back and listen, shall we? A little more Bob Papa.
Will the Eagles bring heat? Dart in shotgun set. Drops back to throw. Escapes. Now he's going to run with it. Cuts at the 15. He's to the 10. To the 5. Touchdown Giants. Jaxson Dart. Duke-a-doop-a-doo. 20-yard touchdown run.
I like the touchdown celebrations. I like how he undressed Zach Bond in the open field, who was in a tough spot to try to tackle Jaxson Dart there. But Zach Bond's had a couple rough games, and we're going to get to the Eagles side of this, because if you thought the Eagles fans were panicking at 4-0 and then panicking a little more at 4-1, the sky is going to be falling tonight in Philadelphia as the Phillies fly back to the East Coast. And our producer, Chris Babona, and Eric Roberts, and heck, the Dodger faithful, celebrate a bizarre lucky win for the baseball team. We're also, by the way, going to have Bijan Robinson on the show. Oh, by the way, big time show. But first, we're going to talk about this game. We have an interview with Bijan coming up a little later. So that touchdown drive was part of a couple sequences, Nick, that I thought were really good by the offense responding. Eagles have a great opening drive where Saquon Barkley rips off his longest run of the year on the very first play, 18 yards, 13 yards the next play for Saquon Barkley. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to be one of those nights. But Jalen Hurts makes a bad decision on an RPO where he keeps the ball, loses a few yards. They end up settling for 3, and the Giants go down the field on that first touchdown drive. They build what was a 13-3 lead to start the game, and you're thinking, okay, it's off and running. Meanwhile, Eagles offense, like they have all year, had one great half of football in them, and that half was the first half. They respond. They get a couple touchdowns back. Let's actually listen to one of the most comical sequences of the year. The Eagles have a 3rd and like a long 2, maybe even 3 inside the 5. They decide to go for the tush push there, get it close. It was a 2-play tush push sequence to get the first down. Like, that was the plan. They got the first down, and then they just ran it 2 more times for their touchdown.
As they line right back up in the same formation.
Here we go again, full scrum, tush push from the 1. Boo Birds are out. Snap to Hurts. He pushes forward. He drives into the end zone. It's a touchdown. Philadelphia takes the lead with pure, rugged, go-low behavior.
That's a great call.
That was Jason Benetti. Haven't heard from him all year on Westwood One with Devin McCourty. Was listening to that on my way back, actually, Shook. And I didn't know that it was Devin. I thought it was Jason McCourty. Sometimes it's tough to tell. At that point, they established the tush push. Hurts played, I thought, a near perfect first half until the last sequence. We'll get to that. But looked great, I think, in the first half of this game. And the Eagles storm back, and you think, okay, the better team now has the lead. Like, I just figured they're going to take over the game. That is not what happened. And I thought the next drive from the Giants was really telling and important in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that they capped it, I mean, a 15-play, 67-yard march finished off with Cam Skattebo's first of 3 touchdown runs. And I think that is when the game shifted because, the Eagles, they've probably encountered a lot of teams over the last year or so in their run of success that would kind of get tired and kind of wilt in the face of, constant pressure from this Eagles offense. Like, oh, every time we find success, suddenly you're just going to match us. Like, what do we have to do? The Giants didn't. They did not blink in the face of adversity. against the Eagles tonight. And that drive right there, it basically captured their mindset going into this entire game, which is that we're going to fight for 4 quarters. Turns out they only needed like 3 quarters to fight because it was the Eagles who blinked. It was the Eagles who decided we're going to pack it up and go home tonight and figure things out. Because like you said, they put together 1 good half. They didn't put together 2 good halves.
It keeps happening that way. And that drive that you mentioned, the 15-play drive, ends with 1 minute and 19 seconds on the clock. And I was looking back like for some key plays in that drive, but it was actually just 4 plays at a time, like a 3rd and 4 to Hyatt, but he's wide open on the sideline for a first down. It's Skattebo picking up chunks. It was just a very workman-like drive. The Eagles' 4-man pass rush tonight was absent, and it really is striking to me to think a little big picture before we get back into the game flow, that so much focus has been on A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and it got quiet in the second half of this game again. But I think Jalen Hurts in the passing game on some level is pretty similar to where it was on average in the regular season last year. Like, it's not a top 10 group. It wasn't last year either, but it's not a bottom 10 group either. It's efficient enough. It's in the middle. What's different, Nick, to me is there's no 4-man pass rush that's consistent. And there was no Jalen Carter tonight. We should point out he was inactive for the game. There's no Landon Dickerson either. So that's important for the Eagles. But there's no 4-man pass rush like they've always had. And there's not a good running game. And Saquon, after that opening spurt, was shut down. And it's like, that's what's different about these Eagles. And that's what's been good about the Eagles for a decade. And that's really not there for them right now.
Yeah, and you're kind of teeing me up to get bashed by Eagles fans who've been in my mentions for a year saying I've ranked Jalen Hurts too low in the QB index. But that's fine, because what really matters more than anything is that it starts in the trenches. Like, you know where I'm going to go with this. And tonight proved it. I mean, you lose Jalen Carter. He's not able to play. That's your most important defensive interior player. He's a game-wrecking type of player. You take him out, all you have left there is Jordan Davis. I felt like I was watching a cast of anonymous rushers on the front 4 for the Eagles. Like, the teeth had been taken from their defense. Not to mention, they lost Quinion Mitchell during this game. They're already down. Like, their cornerback situation is rough. At one point, it's Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson out there, which both of them are a liability. So their defense is banged up. Like, they're missing key contributors on that side of the ball, and that's why they couldn't get stops and why they gave up 34 points to the Giants. But also on the offensive side, just like you said, there's no running game. There's been no running game all year. And you come to learn how valuable a player like Landon Dickerson is to this group. But that alone is not enough for me, because like, losing 1 lineman can hurt any team, especially a player of Dickerson's caliber. But the way in which they try to get Saquon going is just so inconsistent, to the point where they're down, I think, 10 in the 4th quarter, and Kevin Patullo is just putting them in 5 wide, just empty. Just go empty the whole time. Saquon's out there wide one time. A.J. Dillon's out there wide again. He ends up committing a turnover in that situation. And it just makes you wonder, like, where did the identity of the Eagles, a team that was built around the strength of their offensive line and their running game and could build out of that, where did that go? And obviously the easy conclusion is, the passing game's, disjointed. They're stuck in a rut. Well, yeah, because that's all they can do. Like, we go back to the Rams game. They couldn't stop a nosebleed in the first half. They had to air it out, and luckily they did enough to come back and beat the Rams with a couple of blocked field goals as well. But, like, this has been a concerning sign for now 3 games, and I don't know if it gets any better anytime soon.
No, because Dickerson needs to get healthy. They're a couple weeks away from their bye week. Their schedule is very interesting, by the way. They go at Minnesota next week, and then they have the Giants again at home. I hate when teams play twice in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Especially if it's late in the year. There is something about this particular situation that we're going to get a replay of this game in 2 weeks that I do find interesting, because you better win that game, Philadelphia. If you get swept by the Giants at home, losing twice in 3 weeks, that puts the stakes at that game very high. But I think it was really well said about the line. They just can't run block this year. And it's the 3 interior guys. It's Steen, it's Juergens, and it's Dickerson when he's out there. And then, the group they had today just wasn't good enough. Because you know who also didn't really get much pressure today? Like the Giants.
No.
The Eagles' offensive line played great. And that's, in terms of pass protection, that's where maybe you can criticize Hurts and Patullo, because Jalen Hurts' time to throw
I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
3.43 tonight, at least when I last checked. I don't know if that was the final number.
3.42 was what it finished at. Yeah, so the same thing. Yeah, that's an obvious sign.
I haven't seen like a number that high since Justin Fields' like rookie year. He went crazy.
And Jalen's a guy who usually he holds onto the ball longer than the average quarterback already. He's a guy who likes to float around back there and wait for guys to get open. And early in this game, it was working. They ran a Mills concept where he waited for the crosser on the drag to get open, and it got a first down. He waited again and kind of improvised, found another guy wide open at the sticks for a first down. It was fine. But in the second half, once the Giants gained a lead, number one, built a 10-point lead, they didn't have to play against the run. They didn't have to try to stop the run anymore. They could just play coverage. At that point, there was nowhere for Hurts to go. And it just undercut this entire offense, which kind of typifies where this entire unit has been for a few weeks now.
Right. It's like just make a decision, and they're a hard team to talk about because you made a lot of nice throws in the first half. It's just these little things. The half ends, they get the ball with 1 minute and 19 seconds left, and they run out of time. He manages it really poorly.
Yeah.
At one point, he's totally unaware of the clock, trying to get the last play off. He's like jumping back into shotgun. He is not good in the 2-minute drill. I feel like I'm comfortable in saying that. That's the weakest part of his game. He's really bad at the clock management part of it. And that can be blamed on coaching a little bit, but I kind of blame that more on Jalen Hurts. So he's bad at that. And then there's been a play or two each week where you're just, man, that would have changed the game. And that play tonight was when Devontae Smith beat, was it Flott?
Yeah.
By about 8 yards. I mean, you cannot be more open. Hurts is on his own goal line when he throws that ball. It's his best throw usually. He misses it by so much. And if he hits Devontae Smith there, I think it's like a 96-yard touchdown. Instead, they punt it away to the Giants, who are on a short field, and then they end up taking a big lead.
Yeah, it was a game-changing miss. But, you know, when I watched it, I'm watching on Prime Vision, so you're getting that behind the line, film angle, and you can see what Jalen was trying to do. Like, I don't blame this entirely on him. He just sent it too deep. But, like, there's a safety there, and the way that Devontae Smith was running that route, he had to throw it away from the safety, so he tries to put it over his outside shoulder, and it kind of gets Devontae, turned around, and he kind of can't track the ball. And especially it's like a Willie Mays style, like, over the, basket catch over the shoulder type of thing. So it's a tough play to make. But, yeah, he missed him by a few yards. And it was a pivotal miss in that game because of what, it unfolded from there. And then the other one that I hate to bring up, because I hate to be the guy who sits back and just looks at when guys are open in certain spots in film. But I watched this live and I thought, oh, it worked. And he didn't go to the guy that I thought he was going to go to, which was the pick. It was the Cordell Flott pick. Jalen's dropping back and he's eyeing his outside target the entire time out of the corner of his eye, waiting for him to break so he can throw it. First off, he puts the ball on the wrong side of his receiver. He leaves it too far inside, which is why Flott was able to jump the route. Secondly, they run this concept where they run Goddard up to about the sticks and he sits down and it brings the safety down. And A.J. Brown's running a crosser right behind him and he's open. And I'm like, man, Jalen, if you didn't decide so quickly that you were going to throw the out, as if you're trying to make the safe play, you had a touchdown there. And again, don't like to be the guy who's like, because I don't know where the progression was supposed to dictate that his eye should be. But just looking back in the way that this game kind of melted down for them, I really wish he would have made the throw to A.J. Brown there. It might have changed the conversation with this game.
Yeah, it's tough to kill a guy for his first interception in 300 regular season snaps or whatever the crazy stat was. But tonight, that interception killed their chances, killed the game. It was a bad throw. It was a bad decision. It was a great play by Flott, who won that battle in training camp. So that helped put the game away. But we were talking about that sequence, when the Eagles are punting out of their own end zone and it sets up what is really the touchdown that made me think, oh, wow, I guess the Giants might just win this game. And this was, I believe, on a drive where, again, third down, Dart was absolute money. The variety of the throws that he had were really impressive to me tonight. But he had a nice, quick slant up the seam on that drive on the third down that kept it going. There was a lot of just little plays by Dart. There was the one that he just scrambled forever before making a play to the Wan'Dale Robinson long touchdown. There was another, scramble where he avoids having a big negative and he just gets a couple yards on the play. It keeps them in a good down and distance. But let's actually go back and listen to the second Cam Skattebo touchdown that really started to put this game out of reach.
Dart over center. Skattebo the back. Handoff Skattebo. Runs to his right. Fighting for the end zone. Did he break the plane? Yes, touchdown Giants! Cam Skattebo with extra effort.
if you're watching that on YouTube, we appreciate that we are able to show these highlights, and we're now re-rolling. Jaxson Dart's asking for them to call the touchdown. He hears one official, I think, tell the other official who was marking it down at the half-yard line that that's a touchdown, and he just slaps the official 5. The official doesn't want it to happen. But when Kirk Herbstreit is kind of making me roll my eyes and gag a little bit, being like, I don't know, you can't define what's it, but he's got it. I don't know if that's what Jaxson Dart has, but he's a hell of a watch. Like, he's entertaining to watch. I love that.
Yeah, he's a fireball of a quarterback. I mean, the kid plays with passion, and it extends well beyond the weird one eye black thing that he does in his face. He is very fun to watch. It was also, not to pivot this back toward the negative, but I'm just looking at all the Eagles players in the field. There were multiple times tonight, speaking to how thin they are defensively right now, where I'm like, who is 95? Who is 94? I even had to double check what number Adoree Jackson was wearing there. Like, that's not a play that Eagles teams of the past get bullied in on the goal line. Like, Skattebo is an absolute rhino of a running back. Like, he's Peyton Hillis blended with a more athletic and quicker running back. Like, that's who he is.
If Peyton Hillis could do backflips, I mean,
yes.
they might have given him 2 Madden covers for that.
They would. They might have given him 3 if the fan vote determined all of them. But like, so he's gonna grind. He's gonna churn up his legs and try to win that battle on the goal line. But Eagles teams of the past wouldn't have happened to them. Like, that speaks to the fact that Jalen Carter's not out there, and just some of the concerns I have with their defensive personnel overall right now. But that's not to take anything away from the Giants. Like, the Giants earned this victory. It was a victory built on desire, passion, and love for the game, as exemplified by their quarterback.
You sound like Brian Dable. I mean, Brian Dable.
No, Brian Dable, he's filled with rage and panic when Jaxson Dart's in the tent.
And then after he gets out, he's out there. He's practically like kissing him on the head. He's headbutting Skattebo. He's like slapping Dart's head the second he gets out of the concussion protocol tent. It's like, all right,
yeah,
Brian
chill
Dable.
Out. Yeah.
Let's calm down just a little bit. Well, I think there are some real personnel takeaways for the Eagles. So you mentioned Adoree Jackson's weak tackle attempt on the goal line. There was also Keely Ringo not only giving up a 34-yard pass to little Jordan Humphrey on that first touchdown drive where he kind of mossed him, but giving up a longer pass to Wan'Dale Robinson later in that drive, where then he just doesn't have any effort and he doesn't touch him down. He just watches him, and Wan'Dale then gets up and runs for another 7 yards. And even in that moment, like, he didn't even be like, oh, why did I do that? I just was watching him, and he just kind of watched it. And the touchdown to Wan'Dale Robinson where Jaxson Dart scrambles around and just kind of makes a play, Makuba comes in and just kind of flies after him.
Terrible tackle attempt.
Yeah, terrible tackle attempt. And that should have been a tackle at the 28-yard line. Instead, Robinson goes in for a score. Howie Roseman had to have been on the phone tonight to go get a cornerback. Because if Quinyon Mitchell has a hamstring injury, who knows? Maybe they're just being careful, but those are usually injuries that keep you out a couple weeks. Like, he could be out until their bye week, and suddenly they're very thin at cornerback.
Yeah, he should have did what the Jags did earlier this week, which is trade for Greg Newsome. Like, you got to make a trade like that. You got to go get a guy.
Or trade for Tyson Campbell, whichever one you like better.
Yeah,
Apparently they were both available.
Yeah, they were both available. Tyson Campbell's under team control through 2029, so I don't know if that fits his salary cap strategy, but he's got to go get somebody, because Adoree Jackson was getting torched in week 1. Keely Ringo was a liability tonight. They're both out on the field at the same time. You are weaker as a defense. And that missed tackle by Andrew Makuba, who I think is a very promising player, by the way, but got caught a little bit out of position, poor form on the tackling. 1 of 13 missed tackles by the Eagles tonight. That's just not good enough. That's not Philadelphia Eagles football.
No, and I just am so glad that the Giants are like back on the board. And what I mean by that is we started the recap show last week talking about like all these 1-4 teams, or even a couple of 2-3 teams that feel a little dead. That if you got them in prime time, it's going to be less exciting. When we're previewing their games, it doesn't feel like a good game just because they're involved. And you know what, with the Giants, even if they lose next week in Denver, which, that's a very tough game, and they go to 2-5, they're just alive. They're just going to be more interesting to watch between Dart, Skattebo, and the pass rushers they have, who even tonight, they didn't even have a good night. They didn't even a great night, but they didn't need to. Maybe the strategy was to contain Hurts as a runner. and they did it. Burns did have a couple sacks. I'm just glad they're back in the mix. Okay, that's it for Eagles-Giants. I think we're good, unless you have anything really big to say. I did want to get your thoughts on the Gregg Newsome for Tyson Campbell trade, just because we're here and we didn't hit it. It happened after we taped, and you're a Browns fan, and I just watched Gregg Newsome be targeted quite a bit by Carson Wentz and did okay in that game, but also gave up some plays. But I think he's had a good season so far for the Browns. What a surprising trade that Gregg Newsome goes to the Jaguars, who are in contention here for the AFC South title, and they trade a guy who's under a long-term contract, Tyson Campbell, for Gregg Newsome, a rare challenge trade. Newsome is going to be a free agent after this year, whereas the Browns get a guy in Campbell who's cost controlled, maybe about $15 million a year for the next few years. What did you think of a very surprising trade? A couple late round picks were exchanged in it that the Browns get to go higher in the draft, but to me that was a less important part of the deal.
Yeah. It said to me two things. It said, one, the Jaguars are very much interested in capitalizing on their hot start, on the fact that they're 4-1 and coming off of a win over the Chiefs. And they believe the time is now to, I guess, go all in to a degree by trading for a guy in Newsome who's always played the opposite corner of Denzel Ward and done a pretty good job. He was not a guy I think the Browns were interested in paying long-term at the market rate that he was probably going to command. But it's also an illustration of where the Browns are as a team right now, which is that A, they are very much open for business, and B, they'd rather get somebody under team control with a fairly friendly contract that contract kind of bumps up in cap number a couple of years from now, but it's a low enough number next year that they can get to the end of the Watson contract and it's affordable, and they have a player that they can line up opposite Ward before they have to start, reallocating some of that money elsewhere, including to that contract. So it's an example of two teams in very different places that picked up the phone and said, look, yeah, we'll send you Gregg Newsome as long as you give us a replacement who's like somewhat comparable. And I think that they both got that, they both achieved that in this deal. But it was a bit of a surprise, given that I thought the most shocking news from the Browns this week would be the Joe Flacco trade. Turns out they also decided to trade Gregg Newsome.
I really liked Tyson Campbell a couple years ago, and
Same.
as it was explained by John Shipley on SI.com, they just didn't see Tyson Campbell as a scheme fit, and he wasn't playing well in this system.
That happens.
He's a good man coverage corner. That's how he wins. He's not a huge cornerback, but he plays tough. That's the type of football that the Browns play. A lot of man coverage relatively. They had Newsome playing in the slot quite a bit just because that's where they needed him.
Yep.
The Jaguars see Newsome as a guy who's more of a player who's going to be good in zone with his eyes on the quarterback and looking to be more of a playmaker. And that makes total sense to me. And I think from the Browns' perspective, if you could sign Tyson Campbell to a contract in free agency, it would cost a lot more than they're going to pay him. So now they have a guy at what could be a pretty thin position for them next year. So I like it. What I really like about it is that the Jaguars especially are just going to be Rams-like, whereas like if they think they can improve their team, they're just going to go do it. Like, forget about convention. I know like they're in the mix, and it's kind of unconventional to trade a starter for a starter in the middle of the season like this. Like, who cares? They're just trying to get better for now and the future. And if they really love Gregg Newsome, they can put the franchise tag on him or figure out a contract with him in the future. So
yeah, they have the opportunity to do that if they like him. And the zone versus man thing I think is good, because if you look at what they did against the Chiefs, 73.9% zone coverage on Monday night. So you're absolutely right about the scheme fit. There is one adjustment that Gregg Newsome is going to have to make. Jim Schwartz encourages his players to celebrate every success. Gregg Newsome built a reputation in Cleveland for dancing rather expressively after the smallest of victories, in which a throw might have been 5 yards over the head of the guy that he was covering, but he's still going to celebrate. Seatbelt, he had this like guitar strumming celebration. Jags fans, you're either going to see a lot of Gregg Newsome celebrating on some big or small plays, or he's going to have to tone it down with the Jaguars.
I feel like they will support that endeavor. Oh, what man! Was not expecting to talk about that, but it came up, and I love it. I'm in a great mood because it was a great night of sports. A big upset victory on TNF. The Tulane Green Wave, after blowing a ton of red zone opportunities, get a late touchdown, and escape and get a much-needed win.
5-1, baby.
You know, they're in the mix. And most importantly, Colleen Wolfe represented all the Philadelphia fans out there that said this day of sports can go straight to hell and burn forever. Actually, I have nothing against Philadelphia fans in general, but I was rooting against the Phillies tonight. And look, the Eagles, they've had enough fun over the years. The NFC East is suddenly very interesting. The Commanders are feeling a little better. The Cowboys are thinking, what's possible? Even the Giants, I think, are looking at this NFC and just wondering, you never know. It's a long season. We're going to take a quick break here, Shook. Great job tonight. And we're going to listen to an interview. I'm very excited for our listeners to hear this. We got Bijan Robinson on the show. We taped this on Wednesday, so it's both me and Jordan Rodriguez talking to Bijan Robinson. You will hear our conversation, and he was great after a quick break.